Today's reading is an Imbolc reading for this time of year where it is not quite the end of winter, but already the start of the beginning of spring. And at this time, we have a transition beginning to come. So we have the Cailleach, who's the ancient winter hag. And on this day, or at this time, the Cailleach goes to the sacred spring and she bathes in the pool and drinks of the water of the sacred spring. And she is transformed into the younger version of herself. So we're going to call in the archetype, the goddess Briga, also known as Bridget, for this. And so this is a time of transition, transformation, but it's also because it is this liminal space where we can call on both the Cailleach and Briga, so both the sort of crone wisdom and this sort of youthful energy magic of beginnings at the same time. So we have 6 positions in this spread. The first is crone wisdom. So this is the wisdom of the crone, the wisdom that we distill throughout our lives, and the wisdom that the crone, that the Cailleach has for us in this her time of power. The Cailleach's the one who gets to decide how the next few weeks are going to be. So on this day, she goes out. If let's say if it's clear and bright, then it's because the Cailleach is out gathering firewood to last through another few weeks of winter. Whereas if it's stormy and sort of windy, then it's because the Cailleach's already asleep and winter won't last very much longer. Where I am, it's a beautiful blue sky, so I think we've got a few more weeks of winter coming yet. But this is a day where the Cailleach's power is still very much in process, as well as Briga. So we have crone wisdom coming through from her, and we also have this position of bone rest. So the Cailleach does take time to sleep. And in her time of winter, many animals, naturally take time to sleep. And I believe that humans need more sleep. We need more rest as well, whether we create our sort of society and our daily lives around that need or not is a different question, but we certainly need it. And it's bone rest, so it's really deep rest that sort of is refreshing and renewing, not just on an outer level, but all the way deep, right down to your bones. So this position will be what needs to rest, but also like, how can rest find you? How can you find rest at this time? Then we've got these 2 central positions of source and transformation. So source is the healing spring, the space of renewal, the pool that you can go and bathe in, the water that you can drink of. This is water magic. It's cleansing, it's refreshing, it's healing. And of course, we're all connected to source, however we choose to describe or know that connection. So, for example, when I'm teaching Reiki, I'll describe that we're connecting in with source, as we call in the Reiki energy, that this is where that energy comes from. And the source, of course, is found within us and without us and all around. So this position is about source and our connection with source. And the other position in the center is transformation. So when we go down to the healing pool and transform, how does that happen? What do we transform into? What is the nature of our transformation? And then the final 2 positions are to do with Briga, so this goddess. I know as Briga, I live in a place that used to be called Brigantia in the Iron Age, and lots of, in the British Isles particularly, there are lots of places with this sort of Briga suffix on their name. But in Ireland, she's known particularly as Bridget, for example, or Breed. And this is a goddess who's associated with, well, she's a triple goddess. And so we have healing with the water and the sacred waters as well. We have the sacred flame. She's a blacksmith goddess. So this creation, transformation, really powerful transformation. Think about how do we create, what is blacksmithing? We're taking the bones of the earth and putting it through an alchemical process that creates whatever's being created. So really real alchemical processing. And so there's this association of the sacred flame. In Kildare and Ireland, there is a flame that has been kept alight for the last 1,000 years by a community of nuns there. And I've visited it, and it's this is a ritual that has withstood time. This is a standing ritual. And this goddess is also about poetry, so expression. In ancient times, they believed that the word is power, word is magic. And I believe that's still true today. The stories we tell to ourselves, to each other, are part of how we create reality. So this expression, this poetry in whatever form your poetry comes, is really, really important. But there are two positions on this side of the reading for under the auspices of this archetype. And the first is the sacred flame. So, what's so important that it's worth us tending to and passing on in a tradition that can last thousands of years, that we need to come together and tend to as a community. And what can the sacred flame offer to us as well? So, the ritual of tending to something in community doesn't have meaning unless there's something that we're tending to. That flame has its own meaning. So when we go and interact with that sacred flame, what is the meaning in that as well? And then also vulnerability. So in this story of the transformation from the Cailleach, the Crone, to the sort of maiden archetype, the young woman archetype, we have vulnerability. And in the mythology, we have this in sort of the well maidens. When we cast off the wisdom and the experience of the crone, we can come to things with, like the pages in tarot, a kind of a beginner's mind, a youthful approach to things. But we also do come without that experience. And perhaps we need to come with a little bit of vulnerability. So in the transformation and renewal, the Cailleach loses some of her vulnerability as she transforms into Briga. So these are our 6 positions today. And I'm just going to invite you to take a deep breath in and go inside. And just ask to receive what you need. And the deck I'm using today is the Next World Tarot. I've been thinking for a while that it may be ready to make an appearance in the community readings again. So our first position then, Crone wisdom. What's our crone wisdom? And it's the 7 of Pentacles. And this is one of my favorite 7s of Pentacles because it actually shows a crone, an older woman, in the card. And so here is someone who is she's sitting there by the side of the road, and she's making jewelry and she's selling jewelry. And I used to know a couple of people who did this actually. And it was very much a labor of love and a labor of patience. And these people had a very sort of calm, patient demeanor. And of course, the 7 of Pentacles is about patience. So if you're selling jewelry but you're not making it, then you might be sort of like looking for who's the next person who's going to come along and sort of buy these wares. But if you're just happily sitting at the side of the road where people can see your process, um, then you're not there just to sell the jewelry. You're making, you're creating, you're enjoying the process. And so you're not looking so much for, who's going to come and buy the next bit. It may be your livelihood, um, but you're actually sort of enjoying the process and more present than you would be if you're looking for like the next thing, the next thing. Traditionally, the Seven of Pentacles it's a card of harvest. So it can be that the harvest is coming in, but it can also be that you do need to have a bit of patience. Do need to have a little bit of faith and trust that whatever your harvest is, it's on its way. It's just not quite here yet. And so this Seven of Pentacles coming up in our Crone wisdom is that invitation to be present with the process of what we're doing, not for the end result, even if the end result is something that we need and that we may be depending on, but still to be present in the process and to be present in our craft, whatever that craft is. And this is going to be different for each one of us. Whatever our craft is, just to enjoy that process of crafting and appreciate what that is. So this has, I think, in this card, it has echoes of the Eight of Pentacles, which is the next card in the sequence. This very sort of this card of creation, of crafting, of going slowly. So that what the wisdom that the crone has for us and the wisdom that we are in the process of honing for ourselves is about patience. It's about it's a reassuring wisdom. Things will come to pass. That harvest is coming in. But if it's not quite yet, then we don't need to be looking for what's next all the time. We can allow ourselves to be in this moment and focus very, very presently on the craft that we are doing. And the appreciation of that craft may come from outside, but it comes from within us as well. So it's an invitation to really be in our space just now and to create a way for ourselves that allows us to be present with what we're doing. And maybe we do that in a way that's visible, like the lady in the card. Maybe we don't. Maybe things become visible at the right time, but we don't need to be rushing anything right now. The next position then for bone rest. So, this kind of deep rest that is necessary at this time. So, what needs bone rest and what does bone rest have for us? And we have here the King of Cups. And so this King of Cups is somebody sitting in a wheelchair. So I think it's a power chair. They're kind of, so the sea's behind them. They're kind of on a cliff, but they're very solid on that cliff. They've got nice big fat tires which are keeping them there. Their bare feet are resting on their sort of footrests. They're looking directly at us, and they've got their cup. Well, they in their hands, in their two hands, they're holding a lotus flower, this symbol of kind of peace. But also the cup that they've got resting on a sort of cup holder that's attached to the wheelchair. It's a nice cup of tea. And, the cup of tea is, it's a sacred ritual in itself. Certainly where I come from, if someone has a shock or if something happens, you make them a nice cup of tea. If someone's just come in or come round, you offer them a cup of tea. It is a grounding ritual. Even in its mundanity, even when you're making it from an instant tea bag and you know, in a mug that may or may not be pretty, it might be chipped, whatever. It's a grounding ritual, and it's a ritual of rest. You know, one of my things that I do that I like to do when, you know, if it's been a long day or something's been intense, you know, I go, right, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to have a cup of tea. And that is my rest time. That is me saying, I'm not doing any of the intense things now. It's time for a cup of tea. So it is a ritual of rest. So this is a reminder that, firstly, that we can build rituals of rest into our daily lives. And they don't have to be big fancy things. They can be little things that we do often. It is also, you know, the cup of tea is also a gesture of hospitality. It's something that, you know, if someone comes round, you offer them a cup of tea. And it's also a way of communicating. So, you know, they might say, "No, I'm only going to be here a couple of minutes." So that conversation about the cup of tea has been a conversation about how long do you intend to stay. So it's also a method of communication as well. So this person, they've used the tools that they have available to them. So they're using a mobility aid. And mobility aids are interesting. I use crutches, sometimes a wheelchair, sometimes a mobility scooter, and I started using them when I needed to because I needed to get around. I know people who, again, sort of particularly people who've been getting older who have needed to use mobility aids and haven't been able to bring themselves to start doing it when they need it. Because for them, it's a symbol of them losing capability, you know, this acceptance of losing capability. When actually, when they've then gone to use them, they realize that it's not at all about losing capability. It's about gaining freedom. When I got my mobility scooter, so I used to tell people, this is my freedom because I can go distances now that I could not go before. I can go to places now that I could not go before, and I can do things that I could not do before. So always when I see a mobility aid in a tarot card, and you don't in a lot of decks, but in this deck they are there, I see that as a symbol of freedom, of giving ourselves the supports that we need in order to be able to do the things that we want to do. So in this position of bone rest, you know, how do we encounter rest? What needs rest and what can rest give to us? This is a really important, powerful symbol that actually rest in itself can be an aid to us being able to do what we need to do, and it's an essential part of that. But also that things are more easier, more restful when we have those supports, whatever they are, in place to allow us to do the things that we need to do. So there we go. Some very, very caring symbolism there with that mobility aid and that cup of tea. And then, of course, the King of Cups is about cups are about the heart, emotions, and the King of Cups is generally an archetype that holds space for us. And so there is this idea, this whole idea about holding space for ourselves, for our rest, and kind of allowing that to be. And this is an archetype of serenity. I've seen with this lotus there, which is often used to represent meditation and the states that we get to in meditation. So it's a lovely pairing of cards for the Cailleach, the Crone wisdom of the Seven of Pentacles, and the bone rest of the King of Cups. And of course, the cups, water, we've got this sort of watery transformation going on in the reading, in the energies at the moment. And we also have with the pentacles that earth energy of the pentacles, very sort of physical energy, is often associated with winter. So we have these two elements working together with the theme of this reading as well so far. So the next position is source. And so this is the position of, you know, what is that healing pool for us? What is source, where we are connected? And it's a major arcana card. It's number 12, which in this deck is suspension. In other decks, you may know it as the Hanged Man. And here we've got a figure who is suspended in the air. They don't seem to be suspended from anything. They're upside down like an acrobat. They're hanging through what looks like a big horseshoe. So one of their legs is resting through the horseshoe. Their feet are pointed. They've got quite a sort of strong looking body with sort of muscles that they're using to put themselves in that position of suspension. So it looks quite acrobatic. But at the same time, the horseshoe is not attached to anything. And the colours in the background, it's kind of pink and yellow, very gentle sky. Those colours I've only really seen in the sky at very, very early on in the morning, at sort of sunrise time in certain conditions. And there's a pair actually of astral bodies in the back. So they might be the sun, the moon, or planets in the background. They're not massively clear, but they are there. And this card is, well, firstly, this is the card that when it's upside down, it's the right way up. And when it's the right way up, it's upside down. So we have an invitation always with this card to invert, to turn things on their head. So for anyone who's been feeling not quite connected with source, then that might be something that you can do. In my daily tarot ritual meditations, the practice for the Hanged Man is actually a physical inversion practice. So there's guidance to do, you know, anything from just sort of folding forward a bit, if that's all you can manage, to, you know, a shoulder stand or a headstand if you want to. And for those who have sort of less mobility, I'm not sure I could do a shoulder stand at the moment. But if I go from sitting or standing to sort of lying on my back, fully supported, even that is a change in physical engagement with the world and position of where do we see the world from. So that's sort of one invitation. But also, of course, metaphorically, look at things from a different angle. Experience from a different angle and from a different sort of position, how the world is, how your situation is. And so in this position of source, it may be that we're invited to make changes in the way we're seeing the world to get in touch with source. This is also a card of pause, of stopping to be in the position that you're in. So this acrobat here in the picture, they probably are always having to adjust themselves, but they are suspended in midair. And so for this moment, they are pausing in this position that they're in. They won't be in it forever. They're going to come back up and they're going to, you know, go and do something probably that's not acrobatic at all. Eventually, you know, they're going to come out of this action that they're in. But while they're in it, they are fully committed to it. So it kind of goes with this crone wisdom that we had of the Seven of Pentacles, being present in the process, not trying to push things forward or pull things to us, but instead kind of accepting where we are. And this is another card with that message of accepting where we are and being fully in where we are at this moment. And it reminds me of this truth that we can sometimes not have in the front of our mind, which is that, of course, every moment is sacred, you know, and it can be a bit of a pattern in spiritual practice to go, you know, I'm looking for the sacred outside myself. I am looking for the sacred in this thing that is greater or higher or more powerful. I am looking for the sacred in this very fancy ritual, you know, whatever it is. but actually the sacred is right here. It's something that you learn and come back to and realize with, for example, mindfulness practice, that, you know, this is the sacred place. This place where we can breathe air and we can drink water or go and bathe in the sacred pool, or even just a not sacred pool, or, you know, even the local swimming baths, whatever it is. This place where we can be in touch with the earth and we can watch plants grow and we can watch birds flying around in the sky, and there are trees and all these other wonderful things. This life, you know, neurons firing within a human being to create conscious experience. This is the magical place. It's not outside of us, it's not in a different realm, it's right here. And so we have this invitation to connect with source where we are right now. And then transformation, as we connect with source, as we bathe in that sacred pool, what transformation is available to us? And what we've got here is the Five of Wands. And this is another really different Five of Wands. I do love this deck. And here is someone who's caring for themselves. So firstly, the Five of Wands. Wands is about fire. Wands is about the creative process, passion, all of this. And the Five of Wands can often be about sort of apparently competing interests. But when you realize that all is interconnected, those and that something done in any of those interests will have an impact on other things. It's a card of the interaction of different things. The card of making a change in one place and having impact in 5 other places. This card shows a person in a sort of bikini or bra and pants. They're kneeling front towards us, although they're not facing at us. They're facing sideways. Their eyes are closed, one hand on heart, and the other hand has a... Now, I'm not exactly sure what that is. Is it a teapot? Is it a magical lamp? It's a vessel of some kind with a rag coming from it. And in the background they have, well, the ground they're kneeling on, there's a lot of plants. They've got shelves. On one of their shelves is a needle box or a sharps disposal box. On another shelf is a double-headed axe. Lots of plants. And in front of them they have some sacred herbs burning. So this is all about, in one sense, there's safety here. So bearing in mind that all is interconnected, this person has decided to make themselves safe. And so they're doing this with the burning of the herbs, the sacredness. They're doing this with disposing of what needs to be disposed of in a way that is safe. They're protecting themselves, and at the same time they're very grounded. Their knees, their feet are on the floor, all those plants around, and their hand is on their heart. So this is a reminder to check in, to behave with safety, perhaps reducing harm. So one of the principles of harm reduction is that instead of judging and saying, oh, you shouldn't be doing that thing, it's bad, to say instead, you know, well, if you're going to do that thing, do it in this way, and that will keep everybody safe. So this is a principle that we can apply to absolutely anything in life. And in this position of transformation, it is this reminder again of this, the magic is in every moment. So this person is very clearly having a fully embodied experience in their life. And there they are with their hand on their heart, eyes closed, sensing inwards. What do I need in this moment? And yeah, again and again with this reading, it's this, we don't need to be trying to change, push and pull all the time at the moment, but really being very, very present in the moment, sensing things might be changing. The Five of Wands is a card of change, movement, things happening, something happening over there affecting what's happening over here. And with the wands with the fire, it can be very, very fast. Even as that is happening, checking in, being present, and what is needed now. So transformation, I think, kind of is happening anyway. It's not something that we need to push and pull at. But at the same time, while it's happening, it's really, really helpful for us to check in with our energy and the energy around us, to check in that everybody is safe, and to take these principles of sort of safety around. And this is the essence of transformation. You know, if it's, we're always transforming, transformation's going to happen. How do we stay present, check in, stay safe, and respond appropriately? Because when we're checking in with our energy, then we're more able to respond appropriately. And that's one of the things, the lessons from the wands, is sort of appropriate response. And then finally for Briga, so, you know, here's the Crone, the Cailleach, going through this transformation, coming to source, going through this transformation. And now Briga, so this, you know, the youthful energy, the energy of this moment, the sacred flame. What is the sacred flame that we must tend, that's worth tending, and that keeps us in contact with the sacred as well? And we've got the 10 of Wands, so another Wands card like that last one. And the Wands, again, about sort of energy, passion, fire, creativity. And this 10 of Wands, you've got someone who they're in, I think it's their own space. So the 10 of Wands, traditionally being a 10, it's the end of the numbers in the minor arcana, so it often is associated with endings. And the 10 of Wands, I will sometimes read as being both about being overburdened or carrying many burdens, and also an invitation to reassess what you are carrying and why you're carrying it. Because what you'll find is that some things you're carrying because they're really important, and you need to keep hold of those. Some things you're carrying because they're important, but they don't actually belong to you, and you may be able to hand those back. And some things you're carrying because you've always carried them, but you no longer need them, they're no longer of value, and you can put those down. And when you go through that process, then the things that you do need to be carrying get a lot easier. So that's how I tend to read the 10 of Wands. In this card, we've got someone who's sat in their own space. They've got a bookshelf behind them. They're holding up a book. They've got sort of posters around them and a big sun on the wall behind them. It's not a big space, but it is a space which they have made their own. They're sitting on an office chair with wheels, so that gives them support, but also the option to move around if they need to. And they're facing straight at us, looking straight at us as we look into the card. And so I think this person is at peace with themselves, or at peace with the journey that they've been on, which might be that journey of the wands of sort of energy. And in this position of the sacred flame, I like that a wands card has come up for sacred flame, because obviously wands being about fire as well, it's a nice nice alignment going on there. And I think there's an acceptance message in this. So as well as that, you know, checking in, what are you carrying? What can be changed or given more priority in what you're carrying? And again, in this position of the sacred flame is tended to by a community because it's important. So there's also this invitation to look at what we're carrying as a community and all the different communities that exist. and how can that be shared more equally, but also an acceptance. So, you know, some things that we're carrying might seem heavy, but they don't have to be. We can transform them. We can take them to source. We can accept the magic in them as well. And then the final position is vulnerability. So, you know, as we come to source, as we are transformed, and some of the tiredness perhaps goes away, and we invite in this youthful energy that can have a bit of a beginner's mindset, without all the armor of the crones. You know, the one who's seen everything. There is an aspect of vulnerability. And so, what is our vulnerability? And it's a major arcana card, the moon. And in this moon, we've got someone who's sitting beneath a full moon, very big full moon, takes up about half of the card. Person sitting on a rock. In the outside, there's power lines in the background, so they're not too far from the city. They're not out in the middle of nowhere, but they are in a space where there's just them and a lobster and a dog with a collar on and a bird sitting on their knee. And this person is, I think they're wearing Doc Martens, which I always approve of, and they're turning their face towards the moon in contemplation. And at the moment, when the moon comes up in a reading, I always look at where the moon is in its cycle at the time of the reading. And we've got a waxing crescent moon at the moment. So we've just had a new moon a few days ago. It's actually ushered in a lunar new year as well. And now the moon is waxing. So growing, things are growing. And I think this is an invitation to be with our vulnerability. So in vulnerability, you know, this position can sometimes show us where we are vulnerable. I'm just glancing across at my altar, and my card of the day has got a big moon on it as well, big full moon. Sometimes this position can warn us of where we're vulnerable, and sometimes it can show us how to get vulnerable. And, you know, both are important. We have to protect ourselves, and we have to not protect ourselves so much that we're not open to new experiences. And this is an invitation. The moon is always associated with intuition, the emotions, but also unconscious work. You know, what's going on in that other realm of our own experience that sort of runs our unconscious patterns. And so perhaps there's an invitation here with the moon to bring some of what is happening unconsciously into consciousness. Now, this is a very potent form of transformation. And the moon is transformative, and the moon cycles. So it's different every single day. Nothing stays the same. And at the same time, those cycles are predictable. So we may find ourselves coming back to the same point that we've been at before. That may happen in more of a spiral than a circle as well. But in this position of vulnerability, we are invited to work with what's intuitive and what might be happening at an unconscious level, which of course is not that easy always to get to. But one of the ways of working with the unconscious is, of course, through tarot work, because in the metaphors, the images on the card, we start to gain understandings that were not previously in our conscious minds. So to put this reading together then, or to summarize, we have the Seven of Pentacles for Crone wisdom, the King of Cups for bone rest, suspension, Major Arcana 12 for source, the Five of Wands for transformation, the Ten of Wands for the sacred flame, and the Moon for vulnerability. And I think it very much is an invitation to magic, an invitation to be where we are. Again and again, we've had this message of the magic in the everyday, and appreciating that we can connect with magic in the everyday, whether that is the magic ritual of the cup of tea, whether that is in the joy in the presence of crafting, whatever it is that we're crafting, whether that is in accepting, even if we are a bit upside down at the moment, whether that is in realizing quite how interconnected everything is, whether that is in remembering that we live in community. Even the most isolated of us lives in community. Everything's interconnected. Whether that is in something as simple as the moon is always there, always something that we can go and connect with. It's free, and we can rely on our intuition as well. So that's our reading for Imbolc, and I wish you a very lovely day. Thank you very much for joining me.